All right, let's watch another video though. We're getting off the rails. This one's from Morph. This is more what I was looking at with the other video that we're watching. You could talk about some of the features from 2023. His title is Best Features of 2023, but his predictions for 2024. I'm really curious what other people think. I've made my prediction video. We just watched Grumpy's, and I'm curious what Morphs are.
2023 is finally behind us, and with it a new year comes with brand new things to look forward to. But instead of looking forward today, I wanted to first look back on the progress of Star Citizen over the course of the last 4 quarters to collate.
What would you guys rate Star Citizen's progress in 2023? Give it like an A, B, C, D, E, F grade.
All of that information into one more comprehensive video to get a better perspective on what kind of progress Star Citizen has made over this past year. And yes, I know some of you in the comment section are probably already typing a flame post telling me about how I was wrong that 2023 was going to be a slow year, but I invite you to wait until the end of the video when I talk about my summary before you make that. So in a moment, I'm going to take you guys through all of the big
This is a going A++, best sitcom, trailers, game doesn't matter.
updates that have happened over the past.
That's probably the most true post that everyone's made in the chat
year.
So far.
And instead of breaking them down into quarterly patches, I'm going to collate all of the data together and separate them into different, more digestible categories to make it easier to understand what kind of progress has been made. And I'll also be adding some important
This one's good too. 2023 was a see me after class year.
Context along the way for some of the more important items. But I'll be leaving out for the most part a lot of the bug fixing and polishing because those things tend to repeat themselves on the same thing over the course of the year. And then at the end, I'll give my own opinion on what I think is going to happen in 2024, and yes, cue another flame fest. And if by the end of the video you think I did a good
Having an opinion on the internet is never a good thing.
job and you think I deserve it, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button to show your support. Starting with the features of 2023.
I guess before he gets into it, if I was going to give it a grade, I would give it like a C. I think they added quite a few good features, did some good quality of life stuff, but again, nothing really connects. Maybe like a D+, C-, something like that. Right? I think we're still super far from like the game being a game, but I think everything that they added were like interesting and good things. But yeah.
We had an update to the hair of Star Citizen, which was only a small part of the whole hair update, coming later with a character customization screen straight from Squadron 42. Then we got ship trespassing, which now allows you to basically get rid of anybody who gets on your ship without permission and who's not in your party so that you don't get a crime stat for
But it also lets people sneak on your ship, which is cool.
Defending what's yours. Next is the ship soft death feature, which isn't really a full feature because it was more of a placeholder, but it enables ships to basically go into a soft death state.
I think soft deathing was one of the best features added to the game.
Before exploding, allowing you to board and raid them of their cargo and potential leftover enemies, making for some potentially pretty fun encounters when boarding ships occupied by other players.
I wanted to give myself a death of an honorable death. I wanted an honorable death.
That's when we were playing, me and
I
Morph.
wanted an honorable death.
And then cargo was physicalized, giving you the ability to remove cargo from cargo
SPK.
grids and put them on your own ship, basically giving you the ability to loot wrecks or other players or NPCs and make an extra buck. This, of course, also added.
For me, the cargo update was A+. I think it's one of the only features that interacted with other systems. I think it enabled piracy. I think it enabled salvaging to feel more like salvaging. I think it enabled people to make money. I think it made interactions with each other. I think it was by far the best system that was added to the game. I think I said soft death was the best, but I think soft deathing is what allowed the cargo refactor to feel the way it was. And yeah, I really love that. And I think that's what we need more of, and that's why I would give it like the 2023, I guess what you would consider a bit of a low grade, because this was the only thing that really did that.
A lot more potential profitability to game.
Cast, a lot of people don't donate on Twitch anymore because they sub or whatever. Donating on Twitch used to be like the thing because not everybody had a sub button.
Play loops like salvage.
It's
Different
not a thing
sized
anymore on
SCU
Twitch.
boxes were
Even on
also
big
added
channels.
into the game, from 1 SCU all the way up to 32 SCU boxes, which are pretty big. Cargo boxes were also made physically purchasable, allowing you to store items in them and use them as mobile inventories of a rather large size, although you can't currently name them like is planned for the future. They also added vehicle tractor beams for the ships in the game that currently have it.
I would say out of everything, I think vehicle tractor beams was like an L implementation of it so far. Do you guys like it, or I thought it was just a massive L. It has so much potential, but it hasn't really reached
The
what it
Argo
could be.
SRV, whose only purpose is to move other ships, which it doesn't do very well at the moment. Then they added the new player experience, which is a 30-minute guide to fly you into space if you're brand new to the game, and gives you a nice free suit along the way. An anti-combat logging system was added into the game. MFD persistence was introduced between
The one thing the soft death mentioned and the tractor beams is it wouldn't be an L as much if the soft death repair was a thing, because then you would need a ship to tractor beam your ship to be soft death repaired, right? And then it would matter.
getting in and out of your ship, so long as you're in the same session. And automated loading for the hull C and A were added as a stopgap measure before they figure out how to do physicalized loading.
I'm going to stop this for a second, guys, just to be certainly aware and very clear. I don't hit the start streaming button, so you guys like donate to me, tip me, and all those things. I do it because I think it's really fun. I just happen to also make money at the same time. It's not. Let's not make it about that, please. Let's chill out. Come on.
Loading with
Chill,
the new
chill, chill.
physicalized cargo update, as well as when they finally get around to doing the cargo lifts themselves.
Talk about the video.
The
Not about
gameplay loop
tipping to me.
category was
Nobody
a
cares.
bit light, with salvage being added in 2023, which first included hull scraping and eventually structural salvage.
Every time I see structural salvage, I get upset.
Salvage contract missions were also added to complement this new gameplay loop, including an illegal variant which is extra profitable with the risk of being blown up by NPC ships. And a new ultra rare and valuable hand mineable element was added called Janonite. For missions and activities, a new Ghost Hollow
You're already pretty unlikable. You don't have to be humble, bro.
PvP mission was added on
I
Microtech,
think
which is
that's funny. I
unfortunately
don't know.
currently broken. A bunker retrieve consignment mission was added, as well as a bunker data heist mission. An illegal mission involving stealing evidence from SPK was added. The prison
I think, not gonna lie, I think the SPK and the law system update to only being able to what's it called, like clear your crime stat at SPK. I think a lot of people are super mad. We're super mad about the way it was, but it ended up being not so bad and actually being a decent change. I think a lot of the law system changes have gone under the radar as not like awesome, and I think that a lot of them really improve the experience a lot for players in the game. Obviously, what we're looking at right now, prison is still a dumpster fire and terrible, but I do think a lot of the law system stuff had a very good impact on the game.
gameplay loop was also expanded just slightly, giving you some missions to assassinate,
Prison's
as well
terrible,
as
though.
the ability to loot prisoners and sell what you find on their body in new dead zones within the prison grounds. SPK was reactivated, which is now the only location you'll be able to clear your crime stat as a criminal. Racing missions were added into the game, including some new racetrack locations, which can earn you a little bit of money if you finish them in
I
a
still never
quicker
got
time.
into this,
and
and I
some
really
new
wanted
Crusader
to.
platforms were added, which are basically mini Siege of Orson locations that you can do all the time. For locations, Seraphim Station replaced Port Alisar this year, which is just a new R&R station. Additional Crusader platforms were added, as I already alluded to with those missions. Derelict settlements were added, as well as derelict outposts, which are two different types of styles.
I think I talked about these in a previous video. There's something missing about these, and I think it's like life. And I said story and got a little bit of a hard time from the chatters about it. But the I think that's what it needs. It needs like, what does this location do? Why do I go here? Why does this location exist? Why is it important? And like, yeah, you can go to the oil rig and know that it's like an oil rig, but if it doesn't like act as one, what's the point? I don't know, right? So they're really cool looking locations, and that's what Star Citizen does incredibly well. But what Star Citizen does incredibly poorly is everything is how would I say it? It's locked down to the to like every table. There's no interactions with it, right? So you walk up to a table, there's a bunch of things sitting on that table. I can't touch any of those things. I can't interact with them. I can't pick up any of them. The location feels like I'm supposed to just look at it, but I'm not supposed to interact with it, right? And I know the things on the table is a bit of a weird example, but everything, yeah, I guess is just a decoration, but nothing really does anything outside of, I think some of the newer outposts, like the ones that we're seeing on the screen, they do have shops. They do have commodity locations. So that's a bit better than what we've had with some others. But I don't know. There's just always something missing, and I'm not sure I can pinpoint exactly what it is. But for me, I think lore coming out of the website and being maybe more in the game will help with that. But I don't know.
The derelict settlements are a little bit bigger, and they were added mostly to Microtech as well as Hurston. Sand caves were added, but sadly there are no missions still associated with those. The DMR crash site was added into the game, which is a unique location. Security Post Korea was reworked. Jump point locations with their clouds and stations were added into the game, which are absolutely beautiful and definitely a place to check out. These added new trading locations for even larger ships like
there's a lot of like trade routes now between these, right? I haven't done a single one.
Like the Hull C. But notably, these locations currently don't have their jump points, so you can't leave the Stanton system just yet. New Jumptown locations were added to Microtech, Hurston, as well as Daymar. Loreville finally got its big update, which looks spectacular, and a Grey Cat PTV racetrack was added on Orison. Overall then, there wasn't really that big headline new location feature in 2023 like a whole new planet. Sadly, we're going to have to wait until server meshing before we're going to get something big like that again.
With the ground vehicle improvements, is the buggy still like super weird? It looks like it's a bit more normal in his video.
Moving on to tech, I want to first state that some of the items on this list were not listed as tech by CIG. And the reason why I've put them in this category is because they're the type of feature that don't really have any gameplay associated with them yet and are more proof of concept. One such feature is the first one on this list, the ability to attach and detach components from ships. Initially, this seemed like it was going to be a very useful idea, however, not all ships currently have this function, and removing components for salvage currently has no real value and isn't
like one of the features that had the most potential, but didn't really meet that level of potential, but will at some point.
Really worth.
This feature being added to the game will be one of, if not the most important features ever added to this game, I think. It just doesn't feel like it right now.
Your time. I was really looking forward to this, but clearly there are a lot of things that still need to be done to make this a truly fully fleshed out feature of the game. Next are rivers, and the reason why they're here is because they're still more of a test. There's not a whole lot of them, and none of them are really
Bro, why do people in this community still talk about these rivers? Is it just because they look okay or something? I never cared about anything less than I did the rivers.
Associated with any kind of location that you can jump to or a mission. Furthermore, I've seen that they're actually kind of broken in the most recent patch. Squadron 42's AI was also integrated in 2023, which saw a huge improvement to their ability to attack and be a threat to players.
Wait. He's saying huge important improvement for ability to be attack and be a threat to players. Meanwhile, showing a video of them standing still after you knocked one of their buddies with the two of you standing there, not knowing who did what, and it's taking 20 minutes for them to figure it out. What's funny is he's right. This is an improvement on what we had, but look at what he's showing. It's still so bad.
When the server performance allows them to do so. And unfortunately, poor server performance is still more of the rule rather
That right there is actually an improvement
than an exception. Persistent editing streaming, which is a huge core pillar tech of Star Citizen, was introduced into the game after a long teething process. It took quite a few
I feel like it was introduced into the game and then gradually, you know, almost in a way like pulled out a lot of the stuff because it was there were so many wrecks everywhere, and at that time, like, the game did feel like, whoa, there's stuff happening on the server, which was cool, but also there was like the cleanup is not happening at all, and
patches
it was
to
super
get
bad.
this right. And for the initial 3.18 release, the game was completely broken for many people who were not even able to log on. This feature, if you don't know, allows items to persist within the world after a player logs off. So say, for example, you leave something on the ground somewhere on a planet. You can return to that location many days or weeks later, and it will still be there for you to find. That's the idea anyway. It didn't quite work out that way. And that's because you aren't able to choose the shard that you play in, so you can't go back to the same world save state as you played in before all the time, which means that the stuff that you left might not be there, making it effectively not that impactful for you just yet.
That's the other thing.
Cleanup is also now a lot more aggressive than it was when it was first released because of how much stuff was left around, further negating its benefits. So this tech is more of something that's happening in the background that doesn't affect the player's experience that much just yet. Gen 12 render was also added into the game, which saw a small performance increase, which wasn't intended by the developers, and the benefits of this aren't really going to show themselves until Vulkan is introduced later on. HDR implementation was partially done, but it's not fully supported yet, and the tech preview channel was added into the game, which allows you to glimpse things that they're testing. We got to test Pyro.
I think 2024 is going to be the year of the tech preview.
This year, for example, for a short period, which was only a partial test without server meshing or any of the bells and whistles we're looking for.
Since I haven't looked at Twitter in a couple days, Zero says, no joke, I saw on Twitter today, poor Morph got his head pooped on by a bird in the park. Well, that's funny, but also that's good luck. That's supposed to be good luck. Maybe that means he's going to have the best year ever.
And the replication layer is
getting pooped on by a bird
being
supposed to be good
tested
luck.
as of the posting of this video. Moving on to Arena Commander, some racetracks from the PU were added into the game. Icebreaker, Miner's Lament, Snake Pit, Yadar Valley, and Halaron Circuit. Dogfighting maps were also added in the form of Jericho Station, Winter Circle, and SPK. FPS maps, Echo 11, SPK, Bloodshot Ridge, and Maker's Point were added. They also introduced experimental gameplay modes, such as Master Modes, to test the upcoming change to the flight model, which is only a small and partial test. We still have a long way to go until we'll see this in the PU. Multi-crew mode was also added into the game along with a UI refactor to allow you to choose which ship to spawn in.
This is probably the best Arena Commander update and has yet to see its like true potential, I think. But I think this update here is going to be the thing that changes Arena Commander forever.
And even choose a different ship to spawn while in the game without having to exit and re-enter. New modes such as Gun Rush, Tank Royale, and Team Tank Royale were also added, among others. For weapons, the Grey Cat multi-tool salvage attachment was added, though nobody really uses it because hand salvaging is currently horribly inefficient and troublesome to do. And the two-handed tractor beam I mentioned earlier was added. That's
he won't.
No other weapons. Kind of light, actually. I didn't realize this until I did this video. Then we arrive at the ships. With the Mirai Fury series, the LX, MX, and Base were added. The Hull C was added. The Crusader A1 and C1 were both added. The Tumbril Storm was added. The Argo SRV made its debut, the Drake Cutter Scout, which notably is missing its scanning ability, which is something I thought they weren't going to do anymore, but I guess they just kind of forgot about that. And the Drake Cutter Rambler was added, a premium starter ship.
So the only thing that they do consistently is ignore what they said in the past. That's the only thing you can believe. what they said means nothing.
Attack Sulin starter was added. The RSI Lynx rover vehicle was introduced. The RSI on
And then the other thing is that everybody in the community takes their word as gold and will defend them based off of the words that they said, even though every single year they prove those people wrong.
Taurus was introduced, a variant of the Scorpius, which unfortunately is missing its fun factor. The Anvil F8 Sea Lightning was brought on sale, even though it was in the game for quite some time. It wasn't originally supposed to be sold, by the way, and that added a lot of drama into the community. The Opa Santo Kiai was finally introduced, which is a beautiful ship, and the Origin X1 series were introduced. Finally, for polish and bug fixing, I'm not going to go over everything that happened this year because, like I said, there was a lot of back and forth fixing things that were supposed to be fixed before and polishing things and changing things that got updated later. So I'm just going to leave it with the turret zoom being added to turrets, which was very much needed, as well as a refresh of the UI for said turrets. Siege of Orison got a polish pass and a bit of a tweak to it, make it a little bit better.
Still sucks.
And Jumptown was tweaked and polished as well with their new locations. Notably
Ruined by
missing
other
in 2023 were
sadly.
any new events. CIG also attempted to polish and rebalance the way ground vehicles worked several times. Unfortunately, in my opinion, they're still really not in a great place. Things like the tank still struggle to get any kind of grip on terrain and tend to slide around like they're always driving on ice.
They'll
And
figure it
wheeled
out.
vehicles still tend to behave very strangely, flipping over, getting way too much grip on very vertical terrain, for example. And that's it. That's a short summary of everything that was added in 2023 to Star Citizen that we can experience and play today. But I'm not including things like CitizenCon because those are more promises for the future. They're not actual progress in Star Citizen just yet. And I also
They
want to note
kind
that
of
no matter
are.
how long or short you
I feel like the difference about CitizenCon is they showed so much that looked polished that you were like almost believing that it was like it happened. You know?
perceive this list to be, the length of how I describe a feature does not properly convey how much effort was spent for each. For example, features like PES were clearly the culmination of many years of hard work by a lot of engineers and programmers versus stuff like player hair, which was still a lot of effort clearly, but didn't involve quite so much work. So this video isn't meant to belittle CIG or Star Citizen for the progress that it's been made. It's only meant to just state the facts of what's been done. In the end, in my view, 2023 still turned out to be a slow year for Star Citizen, and the fact that this is really debated so much is kind of a mystery to me, considering that CIG themselves said that they were focused on Squadron 42. And
It's a slow year, but I still think it was one of the best years. I think the game is in the best place it's ever been.
that we should expect to see less
Doesn't mean
updates
it's
for
good.
Star Citizen for now. And nowhere has that been felt more than in Star Citizen's funding. While Star Citizen saw the best year for funding ever in 2023, examining how many new players came in paints a different picture. Throughout the course of 2023, there were over 20% fewer citizens signing on to back Star Citizen, which, in my opinion at least, indicates that there's just less interest outside of the existing community this year. Or in
That's
other words, just
interesting.
less things to get people interested in jumping into Star Citizen for.
I think it's the latter. I think it's less things to get interested to jump into the game for. Also, it didn't really help the way they started. I think a lot of people were turned off by the start of the year, right? The beginning of next year, I don't see anything being like a huge feature or anything like that. I think what I think the next big jump will be like, jump points, pyro, along with another few features that can really hit. That'll be the next like big influx of players.
There were just as many or even more new players, how much that would have affected funding, how much more funding CIG would have had. We also should take into account the fact that they purchased a studio, which means that their expenses are a lot higher than they were in 2022, making this year's profitability probably a lot lower than they were hoping for. I think what it really comes down to is that if you're a returning player who's taken a year-long hiatus, you probably won't notice much difference in the experience from a year ago. And I acknowledge that that might sound pessimistic, but in my view, it's important to keep progress in perspective with the project as a whole. and for how far we've come and how far that's left to go. There was progress in 2023, it just wasn't a whole lot compared to other years. And again, we know why. It's because of Squadron 42, which leads me to 2024. Now, contrary to what some of you may think, I actually love Star Citizen, and I'm not broadly pessimistic about the game's development. I've only felt that it's been slow, and I don't think that 2024 is going to be a slow year. In fact, I think it's going to be one of the best years that Star Citizen has ever had for a feeling of having tangible progress. But I think it's going to be a slow ramp up. Quarter 1 will likely see 1 or 2 significant updates, with the truly impactful and exciting things coming in Quarter 2 and Quarter 3, like the new updates to engineering, as well as Pyro and the first test of real server meshing and a jump point. And I also think that they are aiming to release Squadron 42 by the end of 2024, and we will get an announcement of that release at CitizenCon in 24. But
I think we get the announcement earlier, and I think he's right.
Considering that they weren't really firm on a date yet, that means that they are not 100% on that internal deadline that I believe they have. And the reason why I think we're going to see all of this is because of what they said at CitizenCon. Chris Roberts came on stage to announce that Squadron 42 is feature complete, and that they are now moving on to polishing, which was later followed up by other team members who said that they are working on moving teams back from Squadron over to Star Citizen, signaling a shift in resources and the ability for them to really start producing some really great content for the game. But because they still need to...
I really, really hope that maybe we get the same amount of features, but those features are more polished. Or maybe we get more features, but those features are less polished. But I just hope we get one of those things.
Shift them over, that's why I think it's going to be a slow ramping up. They probably won't all suddenly come to work on Star Citizen. They're going to have to plan it out and slowly move back over. And with that, I hope we'll finally start seeing more multiplayer-focused features, stuff like organization tools to allow us to have real orgs in-game, better trading tools, more gameplay loops, mission givers that are unique and have storylines, even base building and territory control to drive larger organization gameplay. And there's even a ton more I'm sure you can think of that wouldn't have been in Squadron but need to be in Star Citizen. So let me know down in the comment section below. How are you feeling about 2024? And did you think that 2023 was a slow year like I thought? Let me know down in the comment section below. And if you liked the video, you know what to do. See you guys in the new year and have a safe and happy holiday.
We'll see, man. I think he's right. This will be the best year for actual tangible progress, but it just matters what you define tangible progress as. I think if we end up getting a little bit of server meshing stuff, or I think tangible progress sadly is like UI interaction updates, things like that. That is actually tangible progress, as bad as I don't want to say that. And I hope things are more gameplay related. I think we're just going to get more features that are still not very polished and not interacting with each other. And I hope by the end of the year, this is what I said with my predictions, is that I hope by the end of the year, we're feeling like we're going in the right direction. I just hope that we feel like, hey, we got a lot of things in. It looks like they're trying to tie them together, but I don't expect it. And I do still think the focus is probably more on Squadron than they're making it seem like. Yes, polishing is a thing and people are coming back. And but yeah, I just don't see it. And that's really where it's at. That's where I feel like I'm at with it. I don't know, man. This is one of the years where I just can't possibly predict. And most years I don't think you can, coming from our perspective. We don't know what they're planning, but this year's going to be an interesting one. I'm more excited to follow this year than I ever have before. I think I'm going to be a lot happier about things that come in this year than I ever was before.